How true Sigmas communicate, and oh mercy. The guy we are discussing is not your typical, everyday guy, he is the Sigma male. No, these are the rebels who disobey everyone and everything, the lone wolves, and the rule breakers. But how do they communicate, do you know? How can they elicit respect without asking for it? In what way do they communicate without speaking? You're in for a wild journey if not. You see, deciphering the communication style of a Sigma male can be compared to unlocking the ultimate code. It's about knowing a language that doesn't depend on exaggerated gestures or boisterous speech. It's quiet, and really powerful. You'll never look at communication the same way again once we finish this session. The sooner you realize this, the sooner you'll be able to access a level of power and respect that most people can only imagine. Will transform the way you interact with the world. Now, pay attention. It's not like Sigma males are the loudest guys in the room. They aren't making an effort to be the life of the party or yell over others. No, that's not how they do things. Rather, they are the silent ones, just observing and taking it all in. However, don't regard that silence as a sign of weakness or indifference. Hell no, that quiet has a tremendous amount of strength and intensity that is memorable. Sigma males are aware that talking is more than just talking loudly. In actuality, words frequently skew the meaning. Sigma males excel in this situation because it's your behavior and attitude that speaks most. They don't utter a word, yet they convey a lot. You'll know when a Sigma male enters a room. Not because he's making a big splash, but rather because of the vibe he creates. He moves with composed surety, walks with a purpose, and stands tall with unwavering confidence. His posture is upright, his movements are flowing, and his body language is intentional and controlled. He radiates respect as if he were protected by an ethereal barrier. Sigma males have a subtle confidence that is appealing. They're not just living quietly, they're not screaming for attention. Without really being interested, they are actively engaged. Do not misunderstand, this silence is not a sign of shyness or social difficulty. It's a decision, a calculated decision. They avoid being involved in the fake, shallow conversation that most people in the party room seem to enjoy by choosing not to participate in the customary small talk. They save their energy for important things. The issue about male Sigma males is that they'd much prefer to chat meaningfully with one person than strike up a conversation with 5. Take this, and take it well, Sigma males never dress up. No, they don't include acting, pretending, or fake. It all comes down to being authentic to oneself. Now let's get started. Are you aware of the way some people change based on their surroundings or the company they keep? They are this one moment and that the next. It's like seeing a one-man theatrical production. But those are games that Sigma males don't play. A Sigma male is always the same guy, whether he's at the office, the gym, a party, or at home. That is unimportant. He doesn't adjust his behavior based on his surroundings, he doesn't change how he acts to blend in or win over others. He never wavers from who he is. Strength comes from being true to oneself no matter what. It communicates that you are content to be who you are and are not looking for validation. It's not necessary to take on someone else's mindset or emulate their approach. You are already liked, you don't need anyone else to approve of you. And what do you know? People honor that. People respect those who have the self-control to stand up for themselves and say no when necessary. It demonstrates your backbone. Therefore, be yourself, maintain your ground, and don't allow other people to tell you what to do or how to behave if you want to communicate like a Sigma male. A true Sigma male accomplishes that, and believe me, people take note. They show respect for it, and what else? It also feels so fantastic. Hey, what's very cool? Truly listening to others, truly hearing them out. Not only waiting for your chance to speak while nodding. The best at this were the Sigma males. They have excellent listening abilities and are quiet. Let's examine it. Talkative people always speak, as if they are frightened of being silent. However, a Sigma male is the type of person who may be silent. He's okay with listening more than talking, he doesn't have to talk all the time. And here's the thing, people pay attention to Sigma males when they speak. Why? Because he reserves his remarks for moments when he has something truly important to say and is not always chit-chatting. Let's return to the listening portion, though. It's a skill that requires practice, my friend. A Sigma male listens intently to others and offers them his whole focus. He concentrates on the speaker rather than looking at his phone or into space. He is among them in the present. You see, a Sigma male recognizes that everyone has a story to tell, and sometimes all they need is someone to listen. He respects them and values what they have to say when he listens to them. People feel unique because of this, they feel heard and noticed, and guess what? For that, they love him. In this approach, Sigma males establish close relationships. People feel comfortable discussing their ideas and feelings with them because they trust them. And it matters a lot. Sigma males are not sentimental or overreactive, they don't wear their hearts on their sleeves. They're really cold. Sigma males retain their heads when others lose theirs. Don't get me wrong, they are human after all, so it's not like they don't feel anything. However, they control their emotions well enough to prevent them from running amok. They are aware of when it's appropriate to express their emotions and when to keep them to themselves. Imagine yourself in a difficult situation when tensions are rising and people are about to lose it. However, there is one person who is composed. He is not shouting, screaming, or criticizing others. He's just standing there, pondering his next move. That man is a true Sigma male. They are respected and looked up to because of their composure in the face of chaos. After all, you want someone who can think clearly and remain composed in difficult situations, don't you? Let's now discuss one of the most awesome qualities of Sigma males. They were incapable of caring what other people thought. They don't care if someone loves them or hates them. No amount of gossip can change who they are. Imagine this, rumors and disparaging remarks about you are circulating. The Sigma male doesn't become agitated or disturbed as some other individuals do. Why doesn't he let such whispers affect him? He is aware that he is living his life according to his rules. Other opinions of others are only background noise. It's liberating to think like this, guy. You no longer waste time worrying about winning over people, instead, you act in your own best interests. You go down the route you choose. The Sigma male method is that. You'll see a change in your life if you embrace this mindset. You'll have more energy to concentrate on the things that are important to you, feel less worried, and have more confidence. Thus, the next time someone makes fun of you, just brush it off. It's you who is living, not them. When they are speaking to you, they have a habit of giving you the power reflections. It's strong and often overpowering. It's as though they can see right into your soul. The truth is that it's more about attention and respect than it is about intimidation. A Sigma male is telling you, I see you, I hear you, you matter, when he stares at you. Naturally, this assumes that you both respect one another. In a society where people are engrossed in their phones, offering someone your whole attention has great power. It demonstrates your regard for them by directing your attention toward them. When you first start practicing, maintaining eye contact may seem awkward, but persevere. Begin modestly, test it out on your closest friends, then go to new people. It will become second nature in due course. That's it, folks, no more nonsense. Now is the moment to get moving and quit observing. This is the day you stop being modest and stop letting other people define your value. The world is waiting for you to take action, and all the resources you require are right here. The right route is before you, embrace who you are and walk it with pride. Thanks for watching. If you find the video informative, kindly hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Click on the video on your screen to watch our next video on Sigma males. See you there.